Man-Bat issue 4, Dave Vilagos and Sumit Kumar on the art. So this is the penultimate issue of this miniseries. And we left the last issue with Man-Bat and the wife being held captive by Scarecrow and being brainwashed to continue working on his sonic fear device, or subliminal device, whatever the exact term is. And yeah, I think that this, I don't know if it's ever quite lived up to that first issue, which felt really, really tight, but I think it's been doing a relatively good job of exploring things. I think this issue being the issue where they are held captive, they're in this kind of like, dollhouse, I think they call it, where they're seeing this perfect living environment where they're having a happy marriage and experimenting and stuff during the day. But when we actually see it, it's all kind of, a worn down building that looks like shit and whatever.
I mean, to the point where she's seeing him, not as Man-Bat.
Yeah. And it's, I think this stuff all is fairly good. I also like the idea that the inner Man-Bat actually knows this is all fake and he's trying to convince Kirk, hey, this isn't real. We have to fight back. We have to fight. And it gives you this weird sympathy, or at least a connection with the Man-Bat entity himself. Where we're like, yeah, at the end of the day, he still actually wants to save Kirk. He wants to save the wife. He's not trying to like throw them under the bus.
He's not. I mean, I don't want to say never been villainous, but in this story has never been villainous.
Yeah.
He's done things that have crossed the line, but usually still with good intentions.
I will say this, is that obviously it's partly this is because Batman's doing a much better Scarecrow story, and Scarecrow in that book looks absolutely wonderfully terrifying. But there's a moment in the 2-page spread at the start of this where it's the title page and it's describing what this world actually looks like or who invented it, and it gets to Scarecrow and it says built by a wicked mind. And the panel of Scarecrow is so old school cartoony that I don't think the art quite matches up with the image of Scarecrow that they're describing. And I think that's a bit of a disconnect.
I think that's a little bit of a problem where, because we know this was drawn and finished, like a long time ago, like a year ago. And there's a disconnect where they were still, we want you to use this design, because we haven't updated to the new stuff yet. And this is just kind of how it looks, I guess, kind of where I got stuck with because of what the design was at the time.
Yeah, I mean, the design's one thing, but I think the art as well. Like, it's doing a much better job with Man-Bat of going for the tragic monster in the art, whereas I feel like the Scarecrow just looks like old school and cartoony, and it doesn't really fit the narrative in terms of what they're saying Scarecrow is.
I think I'm really enjoying Scarecrow properly having the hat and the straw back, and he has it in that panel, but I think and I don't think it works that well there. The rest of the issue, when you see him and it's just the burlap sack, I think looks a lot better in this particular book. I think he looks a lot more sinister. There's
those panels. There's the panel where it's the close up after he's like he's went and talked to the Langstroms, and Man-Bat attacks him, but he kind of explains it away and sort of resets the, or at least Man-Bat recedes and like Kirk comes back and doesn't know why he attacked him. When he comes out and talks to his henchmen, who are deaf, for the record, all his henchmen are deaf because of what happened in issue 1. There's a close-up panel of his face where it's just him smiling, and he does look quite sinister on that panel. So there are examples of it working, but there's definitely times where it just feels a little bit too it's just a bit too, I don't know. I don't want to just say cartoony again, but like, I guess kid-friendly.
I get where you're coming from. A bit too light.
Yeah. Batman beats up some thugs to demand to know, where all this is happening, and Man-Bat himself actually snaps Francine out of it and sort of makes her realize where they actually are, and basically makes this pact with her. It's this really interesting thing where she's not talking to her husband, she's talking to Man-Bat, and Man-Bat's saying, "Look, I'm like Kirk would hate it if I left you behind or didn't like get you out of this mess, so I'm going to get you out of this mess." But I did kind of like the weird like third person element to it, where it's not Kirk she's talking to, this is Man-Bat she's talking to.
Yeah, there's a point where she's like, "Can I speak to him? Like, say goodbye?" I think, and he's like, "No, he wouldn't have the courage to say goodbye."
Yeah, so it's just interesting her talking to Man-Bat as if Man-Bat's like a mutual friend between her and her husband.
Yeah.
It's an interesting dynamic, which and that's kind of where the book mostly excels at. So sure enough, Batman comes down to get in the fight. Man-Bat's getting in the fight as well with some action sequences. One of the henchmen whose hearing's gone threatens to destroy the cure because we didn't even mention in the course of this issue that Man-Bat, Kirk is dying. Like that's something that's been brought up in the previous issues, and there is a potential cure. This henchman's going to destroy it, but Batman batarangs the case out of his hand. It seems like it's going to be okay. However, during all this chaos, some of Scarecrow's newer, more potent toxin and subliminal messages get to Batman. So Batman's got red eyes, and the idea being is that this doesn't really change who you are, but it makes you give in to your worst instincts and goes like you turn up to 100 on them basically. So Batman goes full militant, you're a monster, you're a criminal, I have to take you down no matter what kind of attitude. So he looks proper monstrous coming towards Man-Bat. And then Man-Bat takes
the only thing he can.
Yeah, he takes the serum. And did we know this was based on Venom before now? Or
no,
is this a reveal?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think this was a reveal where he pulls it and turns out the thing that's going to save him is Venom. So the final panel of this book, what the issue is calling King Man-Bat, it's basically Venomized Man-Bat. So he looks like Man-Bat
Huge.
Hulk.
I love the lettering here because Batman goes, "Oh, you think that scares me?" And he goes, "It should," and then it completely breaks free of the bubbles, and the text is just huge. For the final line, "The night no longer belongs to you."
Yeah,
loved that stuff.
It's a solid miniseries. It's one of these things where it's almost a disservice to it that it's going up against really good books right now. So it's coming off being kind of the lower tier book out of everything, but it's just.
I think this will make a great trade. That hey, you want a Man-Bat story? Here you go.
Yeah, for sure. I think this has been really solid. I mean, it was kind of the one thing I was least looking forward to reading this week because that's just where it is in the hierarchy in a lot of ways. But it's it's good. Yeah, this is the thing. It goes back to the quality over quantity.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still going to give it an 8.
I'm going with 7.5, and I think it's just because I think the art there's a conflict between what some of the art is and what the text is telling me in terms of its stuff. But the ideas are cool. I really like the Man-Bat being a separate character and talking to Francine and trying to get them out of the situation and operating independently, but in a kind of semi-heroic way, which just adds a lot of interesting dynamics to it. So
and this here at the end that even though he's taken Venom and is huge and seems pretty villainous because he's Man-Bat, he's actually kind of doing the right thing in a lot of ways because Batman is the one, as he put in, Batman is compromised.
Yeah. And there's a chance at the end of this, depending on how he handles the situation, Batman, when he's got his clear head, might actually thank him or might acknowledge that he did the right thing, potentially. It just depends how depends how much collateral damage there is in the fight.
It definitely depends on what happens in the final issue, but it's not out of the realm of possibility at this point.